D. James Kennedy Ministries presents Truths That Transform.
A few weeks ago, we broke away from our normal program so that I could share our urgent need with you as we face some difficult decisions that could cause us to have to cut back on the stations this program airs on. I wanted to break into our normal program again today to thank those of you who responded by donating so generously. With the COVID-19 crisis affecting the world economy, we are not at all out of the woods yet. Difficult decisions still remain, but we are in a much better position because of you and your faithfulness than we were just a few weeks ago. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for your generosity. And for those of you that have not yet responded, believe me, we still need your help in this vital election year to continue broadcasting biblical truth on issues so many other ministries either can't or won't touch. To stand with us, simply contact us with your generous donation by writing to D. James Kennedy Ministries, Box 11154, Fort Lauderdale, Florida 33339, or call toll-free 877-962-7677, or go online to djkm.org. Welcome to Truths That Transform, a production of D. James Kennedy Ministries, where we are standing for truth and defending your freedom. You may recall from ancient Greece the story of the Trojan Horse. The Greek gift of an impressive wooden horse seemed to be honoring the Trojans for their valiant defense of their city. But the reality hidden within was a carefully planned effort to undermine the Trojan people and destroy their civilization. At the appointed time, the hidden Greek soldiers emerged from the great horse to open the gates for conquest of Troy. Something similar is happening in our culture today. Dressed in the form of tolerance and freedom, radical leftists are smuggling in the seeds of our destruction. All this month, we will be examining these prominent Trojan horses. The first is the concept of so-called reproductive freedom. In reality, abortion not only stops a human heartbeat, but it brings pain and misery to all who participate in it. Our own Dr. Jerry Newcomb brings us the compelling story of someone who survived the attempt to kill her.
I'm adopted, grew up knowing I was adopted, but didn't find out that I had survived that failed abortion until I was 14 years old. My parents knew when they adopted me. They had been told what my future might look like, and they kept it a secret.
Melissa Oden of Missouri knew nothing but love from her adopted family all her life. But she later learned the disturbing backstory that took place before her adoption.
My parents knew my story, and when I was 14 years old, I accidentally found out because my older sister was facing an unplanned pregnancy herself, was considering every option, which included abortion. And so our parents actually told her my story, hoping that she would understand just how big of a decision she was facing. And so that was 28 years ago now that my sister was told my story, and inevitably, like sisters do, she started to pass some of that information down to me. And so here I was at the age of 14 on a cold October night, asked my mom to explain to me what there could possibly be about my life that I didn't know. And that night she had to tell me that I had survived my own biological mother's abortion.
As she did more research, Melissa learned that by God's grace, she had miraculously survived an attempted late-term saline abortion.
So that type of procedure actually involved injecting a toxic salt solution into the amniotic fluid surrounding me in the womb. And the intent of that toxic salt solution was to poison and scald me to death. We actually know through my medical records that I soaked in it for 5 days. Not 3, but 5, because they could not successfully induce my birth mother's labor. They kept trying. And it wasn't until the 5th day that they succeeded, and I was delivered in the final step of that saline infusion abortion. But instead of being delivered as a successful abortion, I was accidentally born alive.
A compassionate nurse at the hospital was able to whisk Melissa away to another hospital to save this little baby's life.
When I was first delivered, I weighed a little less than 3 pounds. I suffered from severe respiratory, liver problems, seizures. The doctors actually thought I had a fatal heart defect because of the amount of distress I was under. And so they believed that I wouldn't live for very long, that I would suffer from multiple disabilities, but I'm perfectly, quote unquote, perfectly healthy today. My emotional and spiritual scars run much deeper than anything physically.
As Melissa learned of her troubled time in the womb, it was hard for her to take this dark secret well.
This has not been an easy journey for me. You know, years ago, I did not want to be the girl who survived an abortion. It's a very lonely place often to live in. And so, you know, back then, right, I struggled. I faced an eating disorder, alcohol abuse, every possible situation you can think of, right? Trying to run away from the truth about my life. And so many people go through that, right?
But through faith in the Lord, Melissa worked through her grief.
God healed me, and so started looking for my birth parents when I was about 19 years old, started looking for my medical records, and ultimately found both of those things when I was about 30, so back in 2007. So people can see my medical records. I share them freely with Congress all over the world. They're in my book. My medical records say things like a saline infusion for an abortion was done but was unsuccessful. And I ultimately found my birth parents through those records because they forgot to black out their names.
This ultimately led to a meeting of her birth mom for the first time just a few years ago, and they both were shocked at what they learned from each other. Melissa and her birth mom were even able to make a short film together.
I'm the survivor of a failed abortion. I now know that that abortion was forced upon my birth mother, but I am so blessed to now have her in my life. This is my birth mother, Ruth.
We were not allowed to shame the family, basically. We grew up with very strict rules, had to follow the rules, had to toe the line. I dated Melissa's biological dad through high school. He was 2 years older than I was. We dated all through high school. Once he got to college, I tried to break it off, but we ended up staying together. We got engaged, but he did cause a car accident that almost killed my twin sister. And so that was another wrench. You know, it was
Another reason for them not to like
Right,
you.
another reason for them not to like you. I ended up getting pregnant at age 19. One day my mom came in, felt my stomach. She's like, "You're pregnant." And she screamed at us and told us she would take care of it. She had a doctor friend who owed her a favor, and I was snuck in the back door of the hospital, and they started this procedure. It lasted, like Melissa said, it lasted 5 days. Should have only lasted a couple days. And nobody ever examined me. I was never examined by a doctor. Didn't even know I had a boy or a girl. When the baby came out, they said, "Don't look at the baby," which I didn't, because I presumed it was deceased. My mother and my parents then told me the baby had died, and as far as I knew, that was it.
For the next 30 years, Ruth assumed the abortion had succeeded.
And so we finally met face to face a little over 3 years ago. And that's almost hard to describe for me.
I wish I didn't have to wait 30 years to find out that you'd survived.
Would it have been different for you emotionally? I mean, was there baggage over those 30 plus years?
Oh, I wouldn't have hated myself as much.
Today, Melissa Oden is happily married with children and is a leader among the 300 Americans who survived abortion. She has even testified in Congress against abortion and helped spearhead this ad for the 2020 Super Bowl.
We are the survivors of choice.
But the Super Bowl disallowed the ad, perhaps for being too controversial.
Every child deserves better than what I went through in that abortion. But more importantly, our whole world deserves the restoration and reconciliation that's been done in my life and the life of my biological family. But none of this would have ever been possible if I wouldn't have first been blessed to live, and if I wouldn't have been willing to follow God into all of these little corners of the world. I owe my life to Jesus. That's the only reason why I'm alive. That's the only reason why I'm reunited with my biological family, right? I owe my life to him, and I will follow him every day of my life and preach the gospel to the world.
What is the connection between girls losing in sports to males claiming to be female? Planned Parenthood's abortion crusade, and the drive to open America's borders? These tragedies are the result of an ongoing radical war. The new book, Trojan Horses, Exposing the Secret Schemes of the Left, reveals the devious agenda behind the radical strategies that have exacted a huge toll on life and liberty. Discover how clever advocates for socialism, open borders, abortion, and gender confusion deceive and destroy in this richly documented and detailed exposé. Contact us today to receive your copy of Trojan Horses, an insight-packed guide to the schemes targeting your freedom and how to fight back.
What an amazing story. What Satan meant for evil, God has turned to good. Such stories are, of course, anathema to the elites who run our media institutions. An ad featuring Melissa and other survivors of abortion was rejected from this year's Super Bowl broadcast. Meanwhile, the Fox network proudly aired the most sexually explicit halftime show in the history of the Super Bowl to 100 million viewers. Under the guise of liberation, promiscuity has been peddled as a lifestyle. The family has been undermined, and millions have been killed. In fact, the abortion movement has been built on nothing but deception, as Dr. D. James Kennedy reveals in this portion of his message, Lies and More Lies.
Every evil system that has come down the pike has been based upon a foundation of lies. To wit, Nazism, based upon the lie that the Nazis were the master race destined to rule the world. Secondly, that Jews, according to their Supreme Court, were non-persons and therefore could be destroyed at will. Or communism, based upon the lie that state ownership of factories and farms would greatly increase output, production, prosperity, and wealth, and that the state under communism would finally simply wither away. Shintoism, based upon the lie that the emperor was God. It was the absolute conviction of Japanese officers and soldiers that it was impossible for them to lose a war, since their emperor was God. A lie which cost the lives of millions. In fact, if you take all of the millions and millions of people that died because of those lies, it is staggering. No wonder Jesus said of Satan that not only is he the father of lies, but he was a murderer from the beginning. And he said that those that hate me love death. But the truth will out, and the truth of all of those lies has outed, and there is virtually no one that believes any of them today. yet they gripped the minds and hearts of men and brought bloodshed across the world. Abortion. Some would say, well, how dare you compare that to Nazism and communism and Shintoism, which brought about the destruction of tens of millions of lives. My friends, abortion has brought about the death of more lives than Nazism, communism, Shintoism combined. And it's all based upon lies by the father of lies. And I'm afraid there are no doubt some right here in this sanctuary who have believed some of the lies of abortion. Lies and more lies. The greatest lie of all, it's not a baby. That's what the Supreme Court said. It was a non-person. That's what the Nazi Supreme Court said about Jews. That's what our Supreme Court said in Roe v. Wade about babies in the womb. But, Pastor, don't you know that before Roe v. Wade there were up to 10,000 women a year that were dying from back alley abortions? Dr. Bernard Nathanson was a director of the largest abortion clinic in the world in Manhattan, New York. He supervised the abortion of 60,000 babies. He finally came to the place where he could not live with this conscience anymore, and he gave it up. I was in Washington, and he called and asked if he could have lunch with me. Came down to Washington, we had lunch together, and I said to him, "Tell me, Dr. Nathanson, where did they get the statistics for the figure that 10,000 women a year prior to 73, prior to Roe v. Wade, which saved the lives of these 10,000 women every year? Where did they get that figure?" And he went like this: "I gave it to them." He was a co-founder of NARAL, the National Association for the Repeal of Abortion Laws. They've later changed their name. Where did he get it? Right out of thin air. He made it up for the cause. And he said that this was true of most all of the statistics that they use. Lies. All based upon lies. In 1972, there were 39 deaths from abortion in America. By the way, how many women die from legal abortions today? Does anybody know? Can anybody tell me? Is it less than that? More than that? The CDC, Center for Disease Control's, stopped counting deaths from abortion in 1986 because they said it was too difficult, confusing getting the statistics. Yeah. It was too embarrassing to announce the results to Americans. Nobody knows how many American women are dying of abortions today. But I suspect that cessation of statistics tells us a lot. Lies and more lies. Yes, my friends, every evil system is based upon a foundation of lies. But the foundation is crumbling as it has crumbled in Nazism, communism, and Shintoism. It's crumbling in abortion. And dear friends, we need to pray about this great scourge of death that has swept the world and swept this country, that God will take it away.
Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, was a social revolutionary. Though her movement, even today, is euphemistically covered by a frock called reproductive freedom, her true goal was to further a so-called workers' revolution by weeding out those she deemed unfit, which for her included people with epilepsy and African Americans. Yet today, one major Democratic candidate after another lines up to pledge fealty to Planned Parenthood and to further its goals. And where you find ardent pro-abortionists, you will also find support for gender confusion, open borders, socialism, and a host of other society-destroying ideas. Do you know why that is? What strings tie all these pathological viewpoints together? Well, find out in our brand new book, Trojan Horses, Exposing the Secret Schemes of the Left, which we will send to you as our thanks for your generous donation to help meet our funding shortfall and keep on sharing God's Word. Simply write to us at D. James Kennedy Ministries, Box 11154, Fort Lauderdale, Florida 33339, or call toll-free 877-962-7677, or you can go online to djkm.org. Just as the ancient Trojan horse appeared to be a generous gift before its deadly contents poured out of it, these modern Trojan horses offer carefully constructed and well-manicured images which are, as it turns out, wholly at odds with their inward reality. You might even say they come off as angels of light when they are the exact opposite. With a pivotal national election looming on the horizon this year, it's essential to understand the totality of the left's plan for our nation and how we must counter it. And if you are able to give a generous donation of $100 or more, we will send you the book Trojan Horses plus our special new DVD program, The Great Deception, featuring key guests like former presidential candidate Mike Huckabee, former Planned Parenthood manager and subject of the feature film Unplanned, Abby Johnson, Dr. D. James Kennedy, and others. This compelling DVD program exposes the designs of the far left to remake our society in their own image and provides the antidote, a truly Christian worldview. And we will also include a printed booklet version of one of Dr. Kennedy's most requested sermons, What's So Amazing About Grace, which offers the pathway out of this abyss, both culturally and personally, through the saving grace of Jesus Christ. That's the brand new book, Trojan Horses, Exposing the Secret Schemes of the Left, plus the special new DVD program, The Great Deception, as well as Dr. Kennedy's compelling message, What's So Amazing About Grace, in booklet form, as our thanks for your generous donation of $100 or more to proclaim biblical truth in this election year. All are available exclusively through this ministry. Simply write to us at D. James Kennedy Ministries, Box 11154, Fort Lauderdale, Florida 33339, or call toll-free 877-962-7677, or go online to djkm.org. The coronavirus crisis has opened an interesting window onto the thinking of political leaders who seem to think their calling is to run our lives for us. Many were flummoxed when Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and other Democrats inserted support for, you guessed it, Planned Parenthood, America's largest abortion provider, into a coronavirus crisis relief package. Their insistence on kicking back money to abortionists actually delayed the relief that went out to millions of Americans. But in doing so, Pelosi and Schumer were merely scratching the backs of those who scratch theirs. It went virtually unreported by the media, but at the beginning of 2020, Planned Parenthood announced it was throwing $45 million into the upcoming election from its for-profit lobbying arm to support pro-abortion candidates. Jenny Lawson, executive director of Planned Parenthood Votes, said they are comfortable with every major Democratic candidate and decried the pro-life gains made under President Trump. This ministry is a nonpartisan organization, but thanks to our generous listeners, we speak clearly and without apology about the great moral issues of our day. And there is no moral issue greater than the abortion holocaust in America that has killed 60 million of our people. And the fact is, one of the two major political parties in America is in bed with the abortionists of Planned Parenthood. They get campaign dollars from Planned Parenthood, and they take care of their cronies when it comes to government funding, even if that comes at the expense of millions awaiting urgent financial relief during an unprecedented viral crisis. There is one party, and one party only, that is in the pocket of the abortion movement, something for all Christians and anyone who cares about the value of human life to remember when we go to the polls in November. D. James Kennedy Ministries is standing for truth and defending your freedom. I'm Frank Wright. Thanks for joining us for Truths That Transform. We'll see you next time.
Next week on Truths That Transform.
Where the gospel of Christ is preached, there will be an unquenchable flame burning for liberty.
I think that we're in a kind of a time of political theater where some people pretend that borders are somehow bad or divisive. It's kind of silly. It's like saying I'm not going to have walls on my house because I don't want to offend people who might want to wander into my kitchen.
That's next week. Today's program is available on DVD for your gift to this ministry of any amount. Please call, write, or log on to our website today. This has been a production of D. James Kennedy Ministries.